Communication, a topic that is mostly ignored when talked about, but if mastered, it can turn into one of the most powerful weapons we humans possess. To prove my point, I want to tell a personal story. A story that I'm sure the majority of people here have actually experienced. So, where does it all begin? Well, my story begins during 9th grade. I had just transferred schools and everything seemed new to me. New faces, new areas, new teachers. And I just felt alone. This school was huge. It had elementary, middle, and high school all in one building. So it might come as a shock that in a school that big, I struggled to make friends. And every single day I asked myself this question, why? Why am I struggling on such an easy task? Well, the best answer I could come up with was because I was terrible, and I mean terrible, at something called, you guessed it, communication. I thought that if I went up to other people, they would just ignore me, or even worse, they would not understand what I'm trying to tell them. And this cycle had continued for the whole first semester of school. I was miserable. And I have never felt more alone in my entire life. So I knew something had to change. I knew I had to make things better. So I practiced, and I practiced for multiple years. And the results were truly shocking to me. The amount of anxiety and stress that I had been experiencing had a dramatic decrease. And as of now, in my newer school, I made friends instantly. Everything just clicked. And the exams had suddenly gotten so much easier for me. It just felt like magic. And it was unbelievable how much communication had changed my life. So this is the main reason why I consider communication to be so important and powerful. But what is the harsh truth? You see, there's a harsh truth about communication. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to comment on the way you're talking with other people. The only way you would be able to improve is by recording yourself and then later on listening to those recordings and taking notes on the different ways you could actually improve. There was a study done by a few Canadian researchers on how poor communication has impacted the workforce. And the results, as you can see, poor communication has increased stress by a whopping 51% and another 41% in lowered productivity levels. This just shows how communication can be so important. But there's also another quote about the power of communication, where it says that communication can connect minds, hearts, and possibilities all together. So now that you know the power of communication, you might ask yourself, well, how can I improve? How can I improve on the way I'm talking right now? Well, there's several ways of acquiring the perfect set of skills for communication. And the very first one is by pausing. You see, when you pause, you're giving your listener some time to think and process what you have actually just mentioned. And in this way, your whole talk and your sentences will be more clear. As an example, if I say a sentence really fast without any pausing or punctuation, the audience will not understand what I'm saying, and it will lead to a very, very awful talk. Notice the difference between the two sentences? The first sentence was much more clear, it was structured, and it was, most of all, had clarity. But the second sentence was really, really hard to understand because it was structured, but it had no clarity in that structure. There's also another benefit of pausing. You see, pausing gives you, the listener, some time to replace their filler words, such as their ums and ahs, with more maybe conjugated words. And in this way, this also would lead to a more understandable talk. However, Another way you could master the ways of communication is by slowing down. You see, slowing down gives a verbal highlight on a certain word. And in this way, you're kind of indirectly telling the audience that, hey, what I'm about to say is important. So whatever you do, just listen to this portion of my talk. And this also says that the best example I could give you about slowing down is whispering. Have you ever noticed how intrigued we get when someone else is whispering in our ears? We're trying to get closer and closer to see what they're saying. And we think that it's important, but it doesn't really have to be important. And another way of mastering the ways of communication is small talk, the notorious topic of small talk. A topic that I myself, and I know for a fact many others here are struggling with. And I personally find small talk boring and tedious. But why? Does it have to be boring? Well, the answer to that is clearly no. You see, the problem with small talk right now are the questions we ask. And if the question is too generic, there'll be no interest in the listener to actually, talk with you for longer. I have a set of questions right now that I want you to see and think through these questions to figure out the problem. The very first question is, the weather today is good, isn't it? With a question like that, you're just not really interesting. It's not an interesting question for the other person. Or another question that has irritated me as a student is, what grade are you in? I'm going to let you think about these questions and guess the problem. Hope you have your answer, because the problem with these questions, as I said, is that they're too generic. And generic questions really don't interest the other person into giving you the best answer they could. They're just gonna blabber something out and be done with it. For good small talk to happen, you need good questions. And good questions need to be specific. You see, questions like, hey, what is the best book you could suggest me? Or what is the best video game you could suggest me? Or maybe music genre. With questions like this, you are sparking the other person's interest into giving you the best answer they can. And it has been shown that this will lead to longer lasting conversations and even maybe a friendlier tone throughout the whole talk. However, right now, I do need a favor from everyone right here. Doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter where they're from everyone. I want you guys to practice these tips and tricks for multiple years, maybe even a few months. And I assure you that you will be able to master communication like it's drinking water. The whole reason I came up here on this stage today was to work on the way I communicated, and to work on the amount of anxiety and stress that I had been experiencing. And that was my call to action. But what will yours be? Thank you.